Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Catholic Speaks. My name is David Morales. Today, I have a lot to get to. I'm going to just jump right into it. A lot of these things I'm going to be talking about happened this past weekend, and with how crazy and quick everything moves in the world of pop culture and everything, these might be things that, I'm getting a little bit late to, but I do think they're really important for me to talk about, so I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to start with this past weekend, the Met Gala, the 2018 Met Gala happened, and this year's theme was Heavenly Bodies, Fashion and the Catholic Imagination. And being a Catholic, I found it important to comment on it. I saw, some varying opinions on it, and I saw a lot of people were upset by it and thought, that this was extremely disrespectful to our religion and our church. Um, I saw a lot of people, kind of falling into the cultural appropriation ideas and saying that this is actually cultural appropriation and not all other uh, versions of it that the left is complaining about on a consistent basis are not, and that there's a double standard going on, and I think that this whole thing was way overblown. I think that I did look at a lot of the photos and a lot of the things coming out of the Met Gala and all of the fashion created for the event, and I thought a lot of it was interesting. I thought that Zendaya wore a very interesting Joan of Arc inspired gown. I thought that Katy Perry, whose politics and opinions I usually find very misinformed, in order to be charitable and kind of not as aggressive towards her. But I don't agree with her politically very often. But I thought her fashion choice in this event was really interesting and very iconic. She chose to dress up as a seraph, as an angelic thing. Rihanna's I think was a bit more controversial, wearing a mitre, and her gown and costume was Papal inspired, and obviously the Catholic Church does not have female ordained priests, or ordained ministers in the Catholic Church that are female, and that goes back to Catholic tradition. We believe that Christ chose 12 apostles, and those 12 apostles were men. He could have chosen women. He could have chosen, women to be ministers and to be the messengers of his word, but women played a different role in the church, and they do play a different role in the church right now. There are still, religious organizations and ways to devote yourself religiously to the Catholic Church in the form of taking vows of becoming a nun and working within the church in that way as brothers and sisters and taking religious orders in that way, but they do not serve the church as priests for that reason. That's why we have that stipulation, is that we are the priests, bishops, cardinals, and the pope. Their ordination, their organization is modeled after the original apostles. They're supposed to be the stand-ins for the apostles who knew Christ. And so in modeling themselves after the apostles, they do continue to only ordain men. And that's part of our tradition, that's part of our that's part of our beliefs, is that ordination and the running of the church and uh, the spreading of God's word in the form of ordained priesthood and in performing the sacraments is reserved to men who take up this holy order. So that's why I think Rihanna's is the most controversial, but again, I don't think that it was done out of any disrespect. I choose to believe that people ran with the theme, and they saw the theme was Catholic things, and people are going to especially in fashion shows. I mean, these fashion shows often go for the weird, the outrageous. They try to, create something that is very wild and eye catching. Obviously a lot of these fashion shows aren't things that you're going to be wearing on a day-to-day basis. These are costumes. These are things, to catch the eye, to make you think, to be provocative, and that's what I think they were doing. And I didn't see as much disrespect in it as I think a lot of people did. And I was very impressed actually with a lot of the costuming. Jared Leto is another one that I saw. His tuxedo was modeled after some priestly vestments. And again, while that can be controversial, I choose to, take it as a moment of like, look, this is my faith, this is my culture on display a little bit, and I can then take that and teach about what the Catholic Church really is, and go see, okay, like, look, this is inspired by this. Jared Leto's tuxedo is inspired by priestly vestments, and this is real Catholicism. This is inspired by this. But here, let me show you. Let me show you what this really is. The mitre, the costume that Rihanna's wearing, is based on the Pope's robes and the Pope's vestments, and that way, people who are unfamiliar with the Catholic Church can then gain some insight into what the Catholic Church is, and I choose to use it as a conversation starter, as a way to bridge the gap with people who maybe don't know very much about the Catholic Church, or have been away from the Catholic Church so long that they may be misinformed. I think that the Catholic Church has a lot of bad catechesis going on, and that's one of the main reasons why we see, a lack of membership now, a lack of community. The amount of people who consider themselves religious, and especially Catholic, is dwindling now, especially amongst my age group. There's a lot of spiritual, not religious type talk going on, because a lot of people misunderstand what the Catholic Church stands for, and what churches in general, what Christianity stands for. So I think that we as Christians, not just Catholics, but we as Christians need to take any opportunity we can get to teach about the Word of God, and to teach about our beliefs. And that's what this Met Gala should have been for us, especially for Catholics, since it was focused on the Roman Catholic Church and Roman Catholic inspirations. And again, I didn't take it as an offense. I didn't take it as a disrespect to my faith. The Vatican actually participated. They donated about 50 items of clothing and vestments and things from the Vatican to be the basis for inspiration for a lot of these fashion artists, and for to be things that could sit in the Met Gala and be viewed by everybody attending. That's obviously, these people did some research. I mean, according to one article I read, the organizers of the Met Gala this year spent over a year organizing this with the Vatican, and trying to gain inspiration, to gain insight, and talking with the people in charge there, and making sure that this was done in good faith. And so I think that's a positive moment there. So next, I'm going to talk about a video that came out over the weekend, that was called This Is America by Childish Gambino. If you haven't seen it yet, I would highly suggest it. I think the song is rather good. I'm a pretty big fan of rap. If rap's not your thing, you're probably not going to like it. But I thought it was really good. I thought it was inspired, and I think that Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, is an extremely talented individual. But I saw a lot of the left kind of jumping on this thing and saying that it was it was a searing indictment of American culture and of the gun culture, and that it was pro gun control, and that that's the main message they took away from this thing. And um, I think that they're not reading quite enough into it. The I think it's a lot more complex than people are giving it credit for. He's obviously he's being a bit evocative of the and mocking of the old minstrel type shows back in the day with the blackface and everything like that. He's mocking that, and he's using that to show that we as a culture are obsessed with entertainment and the entertainment industry. If you haven't seen the video, it is he opens up with it's a pretty poppy, upbeat type rhythm, and a lot of singing, and he's dancing, and it's a big performance. And then some dark things happen. Within the opening, I believe, minute and a half of the song, he takes a gun out and shoots a person who has a bag over their head and is tied up on the chair. At which point he says the title of the song, "This Is America," and then continues dancing and doing outrageous performance things. Meanwhile, in the background, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of things representing like police rioting, killings, shootings. A lot of imagery goes on in the background. Meanwhile, you're paying attention to him and the foreground dancers, and I think that it's not only a searing indictment of American society, which it obviously is, but it's a searing indictment of the entertainment industry for distracting and being, this big noisy thing that talks about, we're consistently hearing about Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump and their love affair, which, I mean, while disgusting, and I'll be getting into the disgusting behavior of some men later on, while disgusting, there are things that are going on that are much more important than the Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump stuff. And we've seen Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, all over the news cycle over 50 times, I believe, in the past week. He was on CNN or MSNBC. I'll have to verify that in my next video. I'll make sure to verify that and be sure to be accurate in that stuff. But we're so obsessed with the entertainment end of things, with the pop culture end of things, with who's marrying who. I remember not a couple of weeks ago, I think maybe last month, the Prince and Princess of the United Kingdom had their first child, I believe, or their second child. I'm not sure, but revealed their name, that child's name, and that was a huge news cycle. That was all over the news, and that's not even our pop culture here in America. That's stuff that's reaching over the pond. And while all of that kind of stuff's going on, while everybody's paying attention to Kanye West putting out conservative tweets and everything like that, while everybody's paying attention to LeBron James talking about politics, these pop culture icons who are not necessarily the thought leaders of our communities and of our culture and society, while we're paying attention to all of this hyperbole and just messy entertainment industry stuff, there are some serious things going on. I believe that Flint, Michigan is still without clean water. That's a serious issue. And this is Flint, Michigan's water crisis has been going on since the Obama administration, and that's a searing indictment of both administrations if we're going to blame things on a federal level. And I really don't think that this is a federal problem. I think that obviously this is a state and local government problem. And if the federal government needs to reach into a state and a city to make sure it has clean water, then obviously something is deeply, deeply troubling in the government system in Michigan that they can't get clean water in Flint, Michigan. Another, we have a huge debate on gun control going on, and again, most of the news cycle is devoted to either gun control enthusiasts, or if you're not, if those gun control, if those gun control speakers, those people who are proponents of gun control, aren't in the news cycle, they're replaced by Stormy Daniels, and an affair she most likely had with the president. I don't believe that he didn't, have an affair with her. He's well known for his treatment of women. It's something that I never agreed with. I was very skeptical of having Trump be the Republican nominee during the election cycle. I was skeptical of Trump during most of his first year. I think that policy-wise, he's been doing a lot of things that are positive, a lot of things that I agree with, but that also leaves me in the uncomfortable position of having to defend his policy while indicting the man behind that policy. And while it is, it can be newsworthy. The fact that we're continuously focusing on it over and over again, 24/7 coverage of this stuff, instead of other things going on. I mean, Iran fired missiles at Israel, and Israel struck back. Like, those are big deal news things, and they get less and less coverage because we're constantly focused on the tabloid news cycle, the entertainment industry news cycle, and it's just ridiculous that all the only thing taken away from the This Is America Childish Gambino video was gun control. It was much, 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 much more than that. It's an indictment of race relations. It's an indictment of how we use our cell phones to record everything, but we don't involve ourselves. We prefer to be witnesses, not actors with agency over the things going on in our society. We just watch. We watch constantly, over and over again. We just absorb media and create media, and absorb media and create media, and that's it. Instead of being a part of any solutions, we just watch and watch and watch. And that's why I think the video was so provocative to me, and was so, it kind of shook me a little bit into seeing something different coming out of the Hollywood and the entertainment industry bubble, if you will. I think that a lot of the right would probably say, why is he so angry at America? Why is he indicting American society? Why are you agreeing with that indictment of American society? Is probably what a lot of conservatives would ask me. Being a conservative person, they would wonder why, if I am a conservative, why I agree with this, with a lot of what this video is saying. And I think that I agree because there are a lot of issues that we're overlooking. I don't think that America is a deeply racist place. I disagree with that whole idea. I disagree with the idea that there is systemic racism in the United States. If, as Ben Shapiro says, if there is systemic racism, show me where the system is. Show me what system is inherently racist, and I'll call it out and I'll help fight against it. But I don't see it. But there is racism. There will always be racism. There will always be tribalism, especially in a place that is not racially homogenous, like a lot of the Norwegian states, like Russia, like China. A lot of the countries on the other side of the world are racially homogenous, so they don't have to deal with these issues that we deal with on a daily basis. We are the most diverse country in the world, bar none. I mean, maybe the UK, maybe a couple of Western European countries would have some diversity like us, but there's based on our population, based on our population demographics, we have uh, the most diverse religions, sex, gender, sexual orientation, race, um, political ideology. We are the most diverse place in the world, and that's going to lead to some conflicts, and that's going to, there are going to be people, just terrible, terrible people who make decisions and who do cruel and evil things based on race. And the right consistently saying that there is no race problem, there is no race problem, there is no race problem. While I agree that racism has declined vastly, and there are no big systematic racist things going on in government or in corporations or in anything like that are really affecting society, but there are racists, there are things going on that we have to take a hard look, and we have to ask why we really do have to ask, why do so many minorities believe that America is a deeply racist place? We have to ask the question, why is it that many of Hollywood's colored people, why do many of Hollywood's minorities believe that America is a deeply racist place? I think a lot of it has to do with media. Media propagates this and keeps going this message of America is a deeply racist place, and there's constant racial animus, and they fuel the fire of that racial animus constantly. We see it in the news cycle whenever a black man is killed by white cops. It's a constant. There's always the question of, was it because of race? Was it because of race? Was it because of race? And that can be a fair question. And I think that we also have to take into consideration the experiences of these minorities. If you're living in the projects, if you're living in the ghettos of America, and all you're seeing is things that target, the minorities, just things that that affect Hispanics, Latinos, blacks. If all you're seeing is that things detrimentally affect your people, your racial demographic, then of course you're going to have thoughts and ideas that, like, maybe there is a system out to get me, maybe there is a thing out to get me. And I don't think that conservatives have broached that topic enough. I don't think that the right has reached out to minorities and said, what, our message is for you too. I think that there's this huge misunderstanding that the message of the right is solely focused to the white man, to white cisgendered males, and that's just not true. The conservative message applies to everyone. It's why we are so focused on individualism and not on your race, your religion, your creed, or any of that. It is focused on the individual and how you have agency over yourself. There is no government man trying to hold you down. It is just you, and you can make it. And that it with hard work, with maybe some charity, with some help from others, with some community, and with and from a religious standpoint, with God and faith, you can do anything. You can be as successful as you want to be. Whether success means being a 9-to-5 guy like I am right now, or whether success means being the next big pop culture icon of music, of movies, of whatever you deem success is, you can do it. And I think that on the right, we've really failed at reaching out and saying that this message is for everyone. It's a very small group of conservative individuals who are talking to minorities and saying, this message is for you. I think that I can't really say that there are very many Republicans who are sitting in seats of power right now that really focus on the minority vote. I think that they're consistently falling into, I have to go to my base, and my base is blue collar white America. And I think that Republicans can win minority voices. I think that minorities already live by conservative principles and think that, socially they're liberal, but in their pocketbook, in their home life, they're conservative. That's why you see so much of talk of, monogamy. I mean, the talk of loyalty going on in younger generations who should be, who by all means say they are liberals, they are this and they are that, and they vote for liberal ideas, but then in their households they live conservative ideas. They live monogamy, they live traditional families, they live, budgeting, and they live I can do anything if I put my mind to it lives. And then they vote on liberal, I need the government's help, the government needs to do more and involve itself more in people's lives. And those two things are antithetical to each other. The last thing I wanted to get to, and I'm going to have to wrap this up because this video is getting a little bit long, but going back to the sexual proclivities of men, I already talked a little bit about this when I talked about Donald Trump and the Stormy Daniels stuff, but another story came out over the weekend, and it's been unfolding over the week, has been a man by the name of, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I believe it's Schneiderman. He was the I believe he was the Attorney General for New York, and this is now the third Attorney General to be accused of some kind of sexual misconduct. He was accused of by 4 women, and very probably committed these acts of beating them, and one of the women was a Sri Lankan immigrant, and or her parents were Sri Lankan, one of the two, and she was called a brown slave by him. They claimed that they were non-consensually forced into BDSM type sexual encounters and abused and used. And this man is claiming that it was all consensual, that it was all normal. And I wanted to talk about this because one of the things that is going on, I see, and maybe this is just personal opinion and personal experience talking here, but one of the things that I see is that this is kind of common. This chauvinistic idea of how to treat women and how to do things, it's kind of a common occurrence with men right now, and I think that it's kind of getting to be a problem. I myself experienced a bit of this type of behavior, this kind of sexist, domineering behavior from men when I went out. I'm not going to name any of the individuals involved because, they didn't do anything illegal, they didn't do anything wrong, and I don't want any witch hunting going on. But someone I know, we were hanging out, we were going bowling, and consistently, whenever there was a woman around that was in any way attractive, like physically attractive, he would make lewd comments, he would make, lewd remarks, pointing her out, staring, looking her up and down, saying, these lewd, sexually depraved comments, pointing out just anything essentially that was female and walked was commented on and pointed out. And this is a pretty common thing amongst guys. I mean, I've done it. I'm pretty ashamed of that kind of behavior that I participated in for a very long time. It's only very recently, probably within the last 4 or 5 months, that I've really thought about it and really looked back and done some self-reflection and seen that, that kind of behavior is just, it's inappropriate, and it's gross. It's really disgusting to me now, looking back, how I behaved, and how, even now, a lot of men that I know behave around when they think they're in safe company of other men who think the same way. They will make these, sexually depraved comments about, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that to, or I would do this, I would do that to her. She's, oh, what I wouldn't give to do this, and I'm not going to uh, I'm not going to be graphic like these men would, but they can be graphic. I mean, uh, Donald Trump's grab him by the pee remark was pretty evocative of what a lot of male banter is like, and I think that it comes from just this culture of hookups, of of like obsession with sex and sexual intercourse, and just the sex culture that goes around. I think that there's this huge obsession with sex, especially on the male side, especially since we are the more sexually aggressive gender. It's led to this just surge of bad, terrible behavior by men towards women. And I kind of confronted this friend of mine afterwards, the next week, because he received an email from a coworker of ours, who is also an attractive woman, but we've never met her in person. Her picture is shown on an icon on the email thing. If you have Outlook for business, you've probably seen, like, they have those little icons for each person sending emails, and you can have your picture on there, and she does have hers, and she's a very beautiful woman. I'm not going to deny that, but immediately, again, starting in on it, she sent him an email that said, "Have a good weekend," or "I hope you had a good weekend," and it was with a smiley face with an emoji, and immediately his comment wasn't, "Oh, that's nice," or "Oh, she's very pretty." His comment was, "Oh, she sent this, do you think she wants it?" It being sexual intercourse. And that, to me, again, just like very overt, very gross behavior. This person obviously is being friendly to a coworker. There is no connotation of sex. There is no even, I doubt there was even any idea of sexual attraction between this person and the person they work with. Again, they've never met in person. The man in this situation that I'm talking about does not have his picture on his profile, so there would be no way she knows how he looks. All of their interaction is work related. There is no personal interaction. So just to be that presumptuous and say, "Oh, do you think she wants it?" "Yeah, she wants it," right? Is just terribly piggish and disgusting behavior that I have participated in before, and I'm going to, I'm going to knock myself on that one. That is gross and reprehensible behavior, and I think that it comes from men not, in my case, my dad, my dad was always respectful to everyone, women, men, anyone that my dad encountered, he was respectful towards. I couldn't imagine my dad ever making any of the comments that I made. But also, my dad grew up in a different age. My dad didn't grow up in this sex-fueled culture where everything is about sex. Everything is about where you're going to meet, a person of the gender that you're attracted to engage in sexual, intercourse. This is something that, especially with the, proliferation of pornography that's going on, it's so readily available. It's so out there. I believe there was a statistic put out by one of the major porn sites that there was over, I believe, 500,000 hours worth of porn watched collectively across the world. 500,000 hours in 1 year. That's that's a ridiculous amount of time. And I can't claim innocent. I can't claim innocence on that. That's something that I will admit to. I was a part of, and it's something that, as a Catholic man, is considered very sinful, and I go to confession regularly, and it's something that I've cleaned out of my life, and that I think is just a huge burden on society. I think that it makes people worse. It really, really does. It harms the soul. There is nothing of goodness and of godliness in pornography and in the overly sexualized culture that we've built around us. Um, I think that we've taken the importance out of sex. I think that, you know, for a long time, and whether this was a repressive time for women or not, uh, there was a time when sex was considered really and truly an intimate experience and something that should be special and should be shared with someone that you truly loved. And now sex is just a means to an end. Sex is just, a fun time, something that you do on the weekend to waste time. When I kind of blew up on this coworker, because I was very upset. I was very upset by this whole series of events. When I blew up on this culture, his first thing was, "I think you need to get laid. Like, maybe you need to go get laid, and then you'll calm down." And again, the only thing that this guy could focus on was sex and sexuality, and where, and who needed it and who should get it. And it's a huge issue. I think it's a huge issue that people are so obsessed with sexuality. I see it all over my Facebook too. I mean, Facebook is supposed to be, this thing that we all interact on, that people, send each other dumb videos and take pictures of themselves and share. I mean, this video is going to get shared on my Facebook. And the amount of posts that are overtly sexual, just over and over and over again. If I went to my Facebook right now, I'm using my phone to obviously record this video, but if I was on my Facebook right now, I could probably find 5 or 6 really sexual posts on my Facebook within a couple of minutes. I mean, it would be easy to see how overly sexualized our society is and our culture is here in the West. And I think that it's having a really detrimental effect to men and young boys right now. I think that men don't know how to talk to a woman, how to be friends with a woman without involving sexuality. I think I had a friend when I got out of high school that I couldn't be a platonic friend. I couldn't be a good platonic friend because my mind and my being was all about, the sexual attraction to her, this lust. There's a reason why lust is listed as one of the 7 deadly sins in Christian culture. This lust that prevented me from being my best self to this person. And, there are probably plenty of people that have encountered me that have encountered that terrible, lustful side of me that I have no excuse for, but I can only talk about it now because I'm attempting to make a change. And I can only talk about it now because when I've hugged on to my faith, when I've hugged on to my church and my Bible and to God, when I have prayed to God continually to help me be a more to change my drives towards godliness and goodliness. It's only with the strength of God that I'm able to then admit that I was not a good example of manliness. I was not a good example of masculinity. Even as recent as within the past couple of months, I have not been the best example of man that I can be. And that's something that I think we all need to recognize, that men in general, and maybe I'm just unlucky with experiencing other men and having male friends that kind of participate in this kind of dialogue all the time. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but I think I'm questioning whether it is because with Donald Trump engaging in this kind of behavior. Schneiderman now engage in some very, sexually abusive behavior with, I mean, this is the third AG over in New York accused of the same kind of stuff. Anthony Weiner accused of, sending pornographic pictures to underage girls and sexting and all this stuff while he was with his wife. John Edwards was cheating on his wife and paid his, mistress who was pregnant hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep her quiet. We see it all over the place, across both aisles. I believe there was a Republican congressman who just quit over sexual, sexual misconduct. Who resigned over sexual misconduct because, people nowadays are so inundated with sex in music, in movies, in TV shows, in all of this stuff, that you can't help but behave in a certain way, or seemingly can't help but behave in a certain way. And I think that all needs to change. This huge wave of the Me Too movement has really opened my eyes and opened a lot of eyes to how bad things can get when evil behaviors, overly sexual behaviors kind of run amok and run uncontrolled. And that's not to say that sexuality in and of itself is evil. Sexuality leads to the ultimate good that a man and a woman can achieve, and that is the creation of life. That is that is the only real way to create on the level of of naturalness. I mean, building, any art that I create, any slot machine that I build, anything else, that's all physical building. That's all stuff done with my hands. But the only thing that is biological, that is natural, that is from God, that is done with our bodies, through nature, through spirit, is the creation of life. And that transcends all other things. The creation, the continuation of the species, is vastly more important than than me building a slot machine. It's vastly more important than me, playing a video, than me, making a video game or making a song or anything like that. Life will always be more important than the little things that we all do. And so, sexuality, to reiterate the point, sexuality is not evil. Sex is not evil. It's the misuse of sex and the abuse of sex, and this obsession with making sex normal, making it just an everyday, just a transactional thing. I want to have sex with you, you want to have sex with me, so let's just have sex. There is no importance to it anymore. It's just a transaction. It's just a thing that we do, like going out for coffee. People are going to have sex, and that is leading to a real moral downfall, I think. And I think that, men and women need to change that. We need to recognize that sex is important. Sex is, special. Sex is something that should be done only with the person that you are, in a really, truly intimate and loving relationship, and coming from a Catholic point of view, in an eternal bond of matrimony. Marriage is the permanent binding thing in the sight of God that makes sex and sexuality blessed. It makes it allows us to be sure that this is the person that I want to share this deeply intimate and special part of myself with. That's why Catholicism puts such an importance on abstinence before marriage, because that moment of intimacy that you share with your spouse is so important and is so and builds upon the relationship that this transactional nature that we've created is very, very detrimental to, I think, to society at large, but I think to relationships in general. Um, so I'm going to end it there. I'm just going to end it with, think about that. Think about, with men, really think about think about, what kind of behaviors do you exhibit around women that maybe aren't the best thing. I've been really reflecting on that, and if you have any comments, if you have any ideas about this, if you've experienced it, if you're a woman and you've experienced it, because I'm sure a lot of the women on my Facebook have experienced this kind of overly sexualized behavior from men. If you have experiences, comment down below. Send me an email. My email for this channel is acatholicspeaks501@gmail.com. That's acatholicspeaks501@gmail.com. 0 is O. It's a 501. So please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think about all of this stuff, whether it's the fashion show, whether it's the This Is America video, and really whether with this conversation about sexual abuse and the chauvinistic and misogynistic ideas that a lot of men, I think, that are very common with a lot of men. So, please reflect on that and let me know what you think. My name is David Morales. This is A Catholic Speaks. Thank you.